Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group Gryffindor will be presenting on the IOI Corporation BERHAD and BTM Resources BERHAD. Our presentation outline will begin with the background of the company, financial ratio, principle of board leadership and effectiveness, and also conclusion. Firstly, I will talk about the background of IOI Corporation BERHAD. It is a leading global integrated and sustainable palm oil player in the market, which listed in the main market of Bursa Malaysia Security BERHAD and trading as MYX 1961. Besides, the company has two major of business, which is a palm oil business which located in Indonesia and Malaysia, and resources-based manufacturing business that consists of refining, oleochemical, and specialty oil and fat. Then, annual report of IOI Corporation reported that the profit before tax in 2019 is declined compared to 2018, mainly due to the lower contribution from plantation segment.
Next, I will be explain briefly about BTM Resources BERHAD. BTM Resources BERHAD, established in 1994, has a different nature, which is they involve in wood-based industry. Wood-based industry is one of the important industries in Malaysia that help this country to generate income. BTM Resources BERHAD, as we all know, they are not as big as IOI Group, but they are well established in the industry. The company focus on logging, sawmilling, lamination, and molding. The company also was equipped with advanced technologies that help them sustain their company in the industry. Based on their annual report, the company recorded better performance in 2018 compared to 2019. This is because in 2019, it was stated that they received lesser sales revenue and recorded higher liability compared to 2018.
My name is Nor Amira Afifa and I will continue on the financial ratios. The computation of financial ratios help the internal and external users to measure the financial performance of a company. Overall, for IOI Corporation BERHAD and BTM Resources BERHAD, we can conclude that IOI performance is better than BTM. Specifically, under liquidity ratio, the current ratio for IOI is higher compared to BTM. This means that IOI have a higher capability to pay its short-term obligation. However, the quick ratio for both companies is lower than their current ratio. It is showing a high dependency on their inventories, especially for BTM, which is not a good indicator because inventories are less liquid asset. Under efficiency ratio, asset turnover is low for both companies, showing that the capacity of their asset is not fully maximized. The inventory turnover for IOI is higher than BTM, which means that IOI are able to sell their inventory faster, and they sell and replace its inventory 7.19 times per year. That took only 51 days for each cycle. On the other hand, inventory turnover for BTM is only 1.79 times and each cycle requires 207 days. Receivable turnover ratio for both companies are more than 50%. Since BTM Resources has stated around 6 million loss for the year, it also led to negative figure under profitability ratio. Meanwhile, IOI is showing almost 10% profit margin. The return on asset ratio for both companies is quite low because the total asset turnover is low due to inefficiency of their assets. For debt ratio, both companies have a similar trend for debt asset ratio and debt equity ratio. The debt ratio indicated that 42% of its assets are financed by debt. Under debt equity ratio, IOI and BTM show ratios of 0.73 and 0.72 respectively. Lastly, for market ratio, earning per share for IOI is 10.02 cent, while BTM is negative 4.56 cent per share.
According to MCCG 2017, the principle of board leadership and effectiveness consists of three areas. First is board leadership and responsibility. Second is board composition and remuneration. The application of this principle is important to the company to have a good corporate governance. Then I will pass to the next presenter to explain more on comparison between IOI and BTM.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Iman Nusaibah, and now I will proceed with the first intended outcome in MCCG, where every company is headed by a board which assumes responsibility for the company's leadership and is collectively responsible for meeting the objective and goals of the company. Based on the first intended outcome, there are 5 practices that the company need to comply. For this presentation, we will compare between IOI corporations and BTM resources to look whether both of the company have complied with the practices stated in the MCCG or not. For the first practice, both companies have complied it, where it has stated in the annual report of IOI Corporation and BTM Resources. Even though BTM adopt different code of ethics of directors, they still follow some of the MCCG framework where they B or D should set the company's strategic aims, ensure that the necessary resources are in place in the company. Next, both companies also have complied with the practices where the chairman of the company in IOI and BTM is responsible for instilling good corporate governance practices, leadership, and effectiveness of the board. Moving on to the next practice, where the chairman and CEO should be held by different individuals. According to the annual report of both companies, the position of chairman and the CEO hold by a different, which conclude that both companies have complied with this practice. As for first practice, under the intended outcome 1.0, where the company need to ensure the company secretary is suitably qualified. The company secretary of IOI and BTM are suitably qualified where they are a member of professionals in Malaysia, such as Malaysian Institute of Accountants and MICSA. For the last practice, where the directors need to receive meeting materials which are completed and accurate within a reasonable period prior to the meeting. Both companies ensure that this practice should be complied where this has been stated in their annual report. To conclude, both companies, IOI Corporation BERHAD and BTM Resources, have complied all the practices under intended outcome 1.0. That's all from me. I will pass to the next person to continue our presentation.
For intended outcome 2.0, both company has applied the practice and disclosed it in the annual report. IOI Corporation BERHAD had explained every detail about the discharge of responsibilities. The board is guided by the board charter and capital expenditure policy. To add, IOI Corporation BERHAD's Board of Charter and other policies can be found on their website and are properly disclosed. This is important for their stakeholders to have accurate information about the company's governance. For BTM Resources BERHAD, the company applied the practice but did not disclose any explanation on their practice. BTM Resources BERHAD also did not state any future plan either they will adopt the practice or not. Based on our research, the company's website also did not have any specific disclosure about the company's governance and only few informations provided for the public. Hence, we can see that IOI Group did a better job in applying the practice to achieve the intended outcome.
We're moving on to the intended outcome 3.0, in which related to promoting good business and maintaining a healthy corporate culture. For practice 3.1 on the establishment of code of conduct by the board, IOI Corporation BERHAD and BTM Resources BERHAD has set a code of conduct in which applicable to every staff and management. IOI Corporation BERHAD do specify the usage in various angles, including operation, employment, and financial reporting. Meanwhile, BTM do not specify which area the code is covering. In addition, IOI do specify the code of conduct for directors, which need to be adhered by the directors, so they need to communicate in any possible conflict of interest, which could trigger a position as a director. And every dispute must be recorded and analysed by RMC and the board. Meanwhile, BTM do not discuss any scores in this matter. IOI Corporation BERHAD do also encourage their workers to report any unethical action because they do have defined procedure on how to control the current and future dispute. For BTM, they do not have disclosure and do not provide reason behind it, and no future plan is to be discussed. Next, for practice 3.2, on the establishment, review, and implementation of policy on whistleblowing policy. IOI and BTM do provide the policy within the company structure, which is available on the company website. However, BTM do not provide for now as it is available, but there is a plan to put in their website in the future. There is no reason given for this matter. Both companies provide a procedure on how an individual can make a report. IOI corporation workers can give the information through emails, calls or fax, or even direct to the head of business operation and head of human resource. For BTM, the workers can communicate through audit committee chairman and managing director. Thank you.
For intended outcome 4, board decisions are made objectively in the best interest of the company, taking into account diverse perspectives and insights. For the practice 4.1, IOI disclosed in its annual report the board composition. According to the annual report, there is 66% independent non-executive director, 17% executive director, and 17% non-independent non-executive director. This information shows that IOI practice is in compliance to the practice 4.1. Meanwhile, according to the annual report, the members of the board for the BTM resources comprise of 2 executive directors, 2 independent non-executive directors, and 2 non-independent non-executive directors, which is in accordance with the practice. For the practice 4.2, according to the company's annual report, IOI adopted all practice for intended outcome for except practice 4.5. Even there is no further explanation on applying to this practice, we assume that IOI applied the 2-tier voting process for independent director to continue to serve. BTM also applied to this practice as mentioned in the annual report, whereby there were 2 independent directors that need to be assessed and voted for them to continue their service. For practice 4.3, as a result of practicing the practice 4.2, we can conclude that both companies adopted the practice of limiting the tenure of its independent directors to 9 years. Practice 4.4, IOI and BTM both adopted this practice as both companies stress on having directors from a diverse background, skills, and experience. For IOI, the annual report has disclosed the percentage of ethnic diversity of the board. The board comprised of 66% Chinese, 17% Bumiputra, and 17% Indian. BTM mentioned in their report that the directors are coming from different ethnic and cultural background to ensure that the decision made for the company is led by different viewpoints. Practice 4.5, IOI does not adopt this practice as the board only consists of 17% female directors. Similar to BTM resources, out of 6 directors, there is only 1 female board member. And for the practice 4.6, for IOI, selection of the board members is made based on formal and transparent process which complies to the practice. As mentioned in the annual report, the Nominating and Remuneration Committee will assess the suitability of the candidates before appointing them to be the members. BTM also adopt this practice as it mentioned that the selection of the board will be made based on the competency of the candidates. And the last one, practice 4.7, both companies are silent on this matter whereby they have not disclosed the chairman of nominating committee in their annual reports.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Hakim and I will present my part, which is the 5th intended outcome. The 5th intended outcome is regarding the stakeholders. Stakeholders are able to form an opinion on the overall effectiveness of the board and individual directors from MCCG 2017. So what are the practice? So the practice is the board should undertake a formal and objective annual evaluation to determine the effectiveness of the board, its committees, and its individual directors. The board should disclose how the assessment was carried out and its outcome. It's also for MCCG 2017. So after revise these 2 companies, which is IOI Corporation BERHAD and BTM Resources BERHAD, so I would say that from the perspective of IOI Corporation BERHAD, they does apply all the intended outcome required by MCCG 2017, which is for in 2018 they evaluate they have independent external consultant, and for the following year, which is 2019, they made a progress by revise the board charter, enhance quality and efficiency of board discussion. The board also conduct an internal board evaluation about their performance. To conclude, that I would say that IOI Corporation Berhad uh, does follow the intended outcome required, and has successfully performed all their obligation. So for BTM Resources Berhad, they does apply all the intended outcome required, but the application is only applied to those directors, the directors that are retiring, which is they are not comprehensive. Different with IOI, BTM does not include all the directors in this application. So in the conclusion for the fifth intended outcome, I would say that IOI does perform better. IOI does perform better than BTM Resources Berhad. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Moniraha and I'll be continuing with the intended outcome 6, which states that the level and composition of remuneration of directors and senior management take into account the company's desire to attract and retain the right talent in the board and senior management to drive the company's long-term objectives. This outcome has two practices. For the first practice, IOI has remuneration framework which includes both variable and fixed remuneration and also highlights basis for variable remuneration, which is performance. Details of eligibility of members who can participate in executive share option and 4 principles that are considered for the framework are also listed and defined. BTM, however, has departed from this practice since the policies to determine the remuneration has not been formalized in writing. The board does have plans to formalize the policies and upload the details on the website in the next 1 year. The second practice is adopted by both companies. IOI reviews the remuneration policies on a 3-year cycle basis, which is carried out by the Big Four auditing firms and risk consulting private limited companies. IOI's remuneration review includes top 4 key senior personnel as well. BTM has a board that comprises of 3 independent non-executive directors who support the board in related matters of remuneration, mainly for directors. They are considering to widen the scope to include senior management remuneration review as well in the future. Intended outcome 7 states stakeholders are able to assess whether the remuneration of directors and senior management is commensurate with their individual performance, taking into consideration the company's performance. This outcome has 3 practices. The first practice is adopted by both companies, and thus individual directors' remuneration are disclosed in their annual report. IOI also discloses how the fee is determined and also highlights policies such as directors of IOI cannot be involved in determining their own remuneration, and decision is taken by all board members and subject to their approval. For practice 7.2, both BTM and IOI have departed from this practice. Both companies believe that disclosing details in excess can be disadvantageous to the interest of the company, since companies are operating in highly competitive environments and feel disclosure may cause issues to retain talent. Alternatively, BTM discloses top 5 senior management compensation in audited financial statement, whereas IOI discloses the aggregate compensation of top 4 management personnel in their annual reports. The last practice is not adopted by both BTM and IOI, although IOI does have planned to review this practice from time to time.
After reviewing both annual reports, we can identify that IOI and BTM have similar pattern on the compliance to the MCCG. Overall, both companies are adopting the practice that have been outlined in the framework. Aforementioned in this report, these 2 companies already adopted the practice of the first 3 intended outcomes. However, for intended outcomes 4, 5, 6, and 7, there are some practices that are not applied by IOI or BTM. We can conclude that IOI, the listed company in Bursa Malaysia, is performing better than BTM in terms of practicing the corporate governance. For IOI and BTM to remain their excellent performance, they should consider to improve the corporate governance by adopting principles and practice that are outlined by MCCG. For example, both companies should gradually improve the disclosure of directors and senior management's remuneration in the report to achieve the intended outcome 7. When the information on the remuneration is made available to the stakeholders and other users, it will encourage the members to carry out their responsibilities at their best, as well as increase the confidence of the stakeholders towards the companies.